Thanks,
you.
Liz.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Zoni Gordon, your co-chair for programs. It's a pleasure to introduce our special guest artist this evening. Her name is Lily Wong, and she received her Master's of Fine Arts from CUNY Hunter College in 2020. Her work has been exhibited all over various small fires in Los Angeles, Lyles and King in New York, the Minotaur's Daydreams, curated by Anthony Cudahy in Semios, Paris, Jeffrey Deitch Gallery in Los Angeles, Green Family Art Foundation in Dallas, and Fredericks and Fraser in New York, to name a few. She lives and works in Brooklyn in New York, and her current exhibition called Own Vortex is a solo exhibition in New York. And I would like to just read a few opinions which picked a little bit about our artist. In the expressiveness of the body, the true structure and workings of the human body are, we casually assume, everywhere the same, a universal reality. But then we look into history and our own sense of reality wavers. Wong's protagonists are made of experiences that extend beyond the physical. Own Vortex deepens Wong's use of archetypal figures modeled after the artist's friends, and you'll see a lot of that. As you can see, she prompted peers to strike poses based on invented scenes, as if stills from a film directed by her. She presents strange landscapes, a body blended into a mountain, a figure in an impossibly long backbend. For Lily Wong, a portrait is an introduction of how to know somebody. In that way, this exhibition is a portrait of the mind of the artist, a start of knowledge, which implies the impossibility of knowing everything. Puzzles, incomplete puzzles, puzzle pieces, trying to fit puzzle pieces together, to name a few. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Miss Lily Wong.
Thank you. Am I okay to share my screen now?
Yes.
Okay,
sure.
perfect.
Go ahead and do it.
All right, let me do that. Okie dokie.
There you go.
Okay, everyone can see it. Perfect. Okay. Oh, actually, let me go into slideshow mode. Okay, so I thought I would just start off sharing a few images from my my current show, which is open right now at Lyles and King in New York, in Chinatown. It actually closes on Saturday, so just a couple days left. So I'll start by sharing a few images from there and then take things backwards a little bit and get into some technical elements of the work, and then we can go back through the show and the more like conceptual ideas I had behind it. So the title of my show is Own Vortex, and that comes from a line in a William Blake poem, William Blake's epic poem called Milton. And this comes specifically from this line, which says, "The nature of infinity is this, that everything has its own vortex." And I'll jump into that a bit more later. Let me see. And so this is one of the, just a few install shots from my show, just to give you an idea of what it looked like this time around. So I work primarily, well, for the show exclusively on paper. I paint on paper, acrylic on paper. My background is in printmaking and drawing. So materially, that paper is the medium I am most drawn to. I know most painters often work on canvas or other sort of fabric supports, but I like to work with paper. So my work is, because of that, usually framed. And this time around, I decided to choose colored frames for my work, as you can see here. Thought that would add like a nice layer to it. So just a few quick installation shots. I had 10 paintings overall in this show. Okay, so to take it backwards a little bit, I thought I might get into sort of how I'm currently working today. As you can see, maybe hard to tell scale in these older photos, but I now work pretty large scale. Like this longer piece framed is, oh, I think maybe almost 50 by 100 inches. This one
Wow.
to the right is maybe 40 by 60 approximately. But prior to that, the last few years before that, I worked pretty small. This one here is 12 by 16, maybe. It might even be 9 by 12. I can't remember off the top of my head. But this is probably one of the first. I used to work pretty much exclusively in black and white, and grayscale. And this is one of my first pieces. This is probably in 2019 or so, where I was trying out color. And I was kind of using it in a very illustrative or one-to-one application type of way, as you can see, like almost just like filling in the blanks. I still have a lot of white space, sort of each element has its own color. And then I kind of didn't pursue color for another year or two, because I wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't really functioning how I thought it would. At least it felt kind of hard for me. And this is sort of the direction my work started to go in. From that point, things started shifting in scale. I'm still working pretty much in grayscale or sepia, monotone. Pretty much my only medium here at this point is like one color of paint and water. I don't think I even really used any white except the white of the paper. But then I started to, I was in grad school at the time. That's a time to start trying new things. I don't really know specifically when or why I started using color. This was probably around 2020. People were always, I think my teachers were probably pushing me to do it a lot, but I don't really like being told what to do too much, so it kind of had to get there in my own time. So, and again, my background is in lithography and paint or drawing, and the way, at least I understand color, the way painters think about color is, I traditionally seemed really different than how I understood color, because just because printmaking is so process based, there's a lot of sort of preparation that goes into color planning. It's not as intuitive as I think some painting can be. And it was really hard for me to think of color in the way that I do now, which is a lot more intuitive. So when I first started using color, this is one of the earlier pieces, then I started to jump back into color. I was using it in a really limited palette, sort of almost monochromatic palette. Again, you can see that the white of the paper is still really important here. I kind of started off really just pretty much adding black or darks to any color, because that was really the only way I understood how to use color at that point. And at that point, the way I was teaching myself how to do it was looking to animations, cartooning, and films. Light as like a narrative tool, as a compositional tool, is very important in the work, and kind of seeing how light and color were used together in motion picture made a lot more sense to me than it did when I was trying to study that in other paintings. Maybe because so much of animation is, of course, based in drawing first, like just the way my brain works, that kind of clicked in a way that was easier to understand. So this is, again, another piece from those earlier works in color, again, pretty monochromatic. And so the way that I was really trying to teach myself color was essentially looking at color palettes in film, like cinematography, and trying to copy that. Because the color in these movies that I was watching is used so atmospherically to set a mood, set a tone, and used and the way that color is achieved is with lighting, specifically in these films. So I was pretty much trying to copy these colors when I was trying to teach myself how to paint. So these are a couple film stills from a various number of films by Wong, who is a Chinese filmmaker. This was one of the first pieces I was trying to recreate this color palette, the top left color palette. And that was really, I was realizing that it was really hard to do because I was trying to copy something that's also like being illuminated by a screen, like from my phone. Again, white is, I wasn't really figuring out how to layer colors. I was kind of only figuring how to put them next to each other, if that makes sense. You know, I didn't really understand how starting with a base color underneath and layering on top of that can really change the way that color looks. I was really just always operating with white as my neutral starting point. I know a lot of people, maybe when they start a painting, will tone their paper or will you know, tone different elements of it. Like I have some friends will tone their whole canvas green before they start painting because that's their base color. I didn't really have that understanding or concept of, and I still don't really work like that, but this is another one that I did based on this color palette, top right. And this one was based on that bottom one in orange. So these are all kind of sort of practice exercises in color for me, working through a lot of changes in my work, but primarily learning how color was operating. These are a couple stills from this movie called Inferno. And this was interesting to me because I loved seeing how complementary colors could be used to create light and dark. You know, I think coming from having only used black or browns, just in my head, I thought shadows mean black, shadows mean dark, and lights mean light. But seeing something like this was exciting to see that, you know, here you can't really tell which is the light or shadow. It's the colors operating in sort of a vibrant, exciting way. That's not necessarily a one-to-one logical take on it. Other sort of cinematic examples that I was looking to. And so then I started creating a whole body of work that was I was trying to light and color very cinematically. Here, I thought this would be helpful to show the kind of way I break color down, though, because I use I use this I was making a lithograph at the time. And when you do when you, again, to go back to printmaking, when you make prints, everything is so process based and you're very limited in the number of colors that you can use. You can't, at least when I'm painting now, it's very easy, or a lot easier for me to change what I'm doing or change the color, add color, to make things work. But when you're making prints, you kind of have to reduce all of the color that's in that print to, you know, just like a handful of colors. Usually I mix, like, I don't even know, I don't pre-mix colors. I kind of mix them on the go. So from this painting, I had to distill like 3 or 4 layers. So here I thought I started with this yellow and this blue and this orange. So I think this is sort of like a helpful way to break down how I mentally approach a painting first when I think of a color. And then of course I'll just keep building on top of it. I'm a lot more intuitive with my color choices now, but up until this point, with these paintings, I was very much looking to existing color palettes to kind of inform what I was doing. And I'll just run through, this is probably a painting that is most well documented that I have of the color process, of how I work through the color process. So I knew that I wanted this figure to be like a warm red orange. But again, I don't pre-mix those colors. I just kind of start with one part and let the rest inform each other. And I will, you know, lightly start with the under painting and build on top of that and let those colors just kind of play off each other as they come together. This is one of the last ones. And this is the final image for that one. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of a peek into where my color process comes out. I mean, mark making too, I hope, as you can see in the work, is really important to me. Sort of drawing, I guess these are considered paintings, but to me, I still really think of them as drawings with paint more than anything. I really approach them more from a drawing mindset than I do as a painter, than from a painting mindset. At least that's how I feel about it. But then moving into the kind of my current body of work. This I had a show in LA a year ago, so right in 2022, titled "I Will Wait Out" at various small fires in Los Angeles. And I want to start with here just to kind of show you where the ideas and sources that have been informing my work for the last few years. I've been thinking a lot about the way that personal and cultural memory is stored in the body, and sort of the yearning and vulnerability that comes in pursuit of that connectivity. And so for me, in communicating these ideas, color is a really important narrative tool, as much as it is, you know, as much as the composition and subject matter. So this is one of the main pieces from that show. I've been thinking a lot. You know, all these thoughts eventually led me back to like traditional Chinese medicinal practices like acupuncture, or herbal medicine, sort of practices that approach the body as like an intuitively and holistically, as something that's entwined with nature. I was thinking a lot about how perceptions of something as universal as the body can differ vastly across culture, and how those bodily perceptions are entwined with the conceptions of personhood and the self. So this was one of the centerpieces of that show. And these are some sort of images that informed that work. I don't know where this tree picture is from, but I loved it. I saved it. And this one on the right is a Louise Bourgeois print. I loved this sort of anthropomorphized tree that she had made. She had a lot of prints like this. It's another one. This one was titled Butterfly. And these are some.
Could you go back to that one?
Sure, this one?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And a minute.
Let me know I'll process through and you let me know if you want me to go back. But these are just sort of the process images that I had leading up to it. I was looking at a lot at like body meridian charts, acupuncture charts, sort of mapping of the body, hence sort of the motifs that you see on this figure. Again, another Louise Bourgeois print. I love her. A lot of these ideas I was coming up with, I saw reflected in her work. Felt a lot of kinship with the work that she was making.
Would you do the person again?
Sorry, I can type it in the chat. Yeah, Louise. Oh.
You don't have to type it, just say it.
Louise Bourgeois.
Oh.
I probably have spelled her name wrong, but anyhow.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah. So this is another one of her works. So just to see sort of where the influence, and this is a sketch of mine on the left, but where a lot of the influence of my work comes from is always something that's rooted in line work first, before it becomes color. This is another painting from that show in LA.
Is this all is this watercolor or acrylic?
This is all acrylic on paper.
Okay. It looks so
But
watercolory.
yeah, I use acrylic a lot like watercolor. The only medium that I use with acrylic is water. I don't use any other mediums with it. I think if I worked on maybe I've tried using the same technique on canvas before and linen, and it doesn't work the same because it's not as absorbent,
What kind of paper is it?
This is Arches watercolor.
What number?
It depends. It depends. Sometimes, I usually use hot press. But sometimes I use a heavier weight than others. I sometimes use cold press too.
What brands do you use for acrylic, Lily?
I use Golden and Liquitex.
I love Golden.
And I usually use the heavy body, but I use the fluid body too. The reason I like using paper, again, I don't know if I'm just drawn to that because I am a printmaker and drawer as well, but a lot of these sort of marks that you see here in the hand, for example, and in the background, like over here, that's sort of dry, brushy looking. I think that's something that can really only be I've been able to achieve using paper, just because of the way is absorbed. Yeah, I've tried this on canvas and it doesn't have the same effect, and I would probably have to change the medium or play with the medium the way I use the medium. Again, some more reference images from those works. And this is one that I wanted to highlight from that last show. before I jump into this current show that I'm on. But with this current show at Lyles and King, you know, as you can see, I was looking a lot again at the body as a whole. But with this show, my interest kind of zoomed in on this one particular organ, which is the ear, and thinking a bit about the ear as this kind of nexus of energy, or as a microcosm of a body, or as a portal. In acupuncture, the ear contains the most number of pressure points. I don't know, it's some crazy large number. But the most number of pressure points are concentrated on the ear if you want to treat the body. So sort of treating and trusting the ear as the site capable of physical transformation kind of requires this departure from, you know, sort of rational Western medical thinking that's grounded a lot more in physical evidence and what can be seen or touched. And it, you know, this sort of notion relies a lot more on this understanding that there are an innumerable number of ways to know and experience the body, you know. So if the ear is a microcosm of body, then maybe is the body a microcosm of the world outside of it, you know, the universe. I was thinking a lot about the way that sensation, how is the body formed via sensation and feeling and experience, rather than just simply, you know, anatomy, muscles, and organs. So just some few examples of the ear that I've seen. This is and the ear is also, when thinking about color, is always my favorite thing to paint, because it's such a tricky and specific part of the body. It's not really shaped like anything. It's sort of just like this lump of flesh. And so the way, I don't know if you've ever tried to draw it or paint it, sometimes I find the best way to articulate it is just a mismatch, just kind of a random combination of colors. So this one is a zoomed in part of this painting here, and other elements of the ear. I want to say that this is a Bosch drawing. This is a still from Blue Velvet, a David Lynch film. Here is an ear used in acupuncture, sort of like this like a physical diagram. So I loved this idea. So kind of throughout making the show, which I'm going to jump into now, I kept looking for other ears or other contained portals. So naturally, this kind of led me to spirals. I just saw a question here. Do I use white paint or only thin washes so the paper shows through? I do. So in the earlier works, like I showed you at the beginning, those like these works, as you can see, I relied a lot on the white of the paper. Like here, this moon is pretty much illuminated from the white of the paper showing through. The only colors I've used here are an assortment of blues and greens. And I think it shows in this work. Like again, here, a lot of the white paper, it's just pretty much diluted paint. Now it's a lot more layered. As you can see here, I'm layering the colors a lot more thickly. It's hard to see in a photo, but it's quite a lot of paint. I use a lot of many layers of washes. So, you know, this will be, for example, this background will be layer 1. Here you see the rocks. I've started painting the rock, that's layer 2, and probably by the time I've gotten to here, there's maybe 10 or 15 different layers of color on there. So, and now, yes, I do use white to mix my colors now, but not I don't use white to create brights, if that makes sense. White, I just use white to mix different colors. For my models this time around, I've been mostly using friends. So yeah, actually, to jump into that a bit, until someone recently, most of the subjects in my work have either been modeled off myself or fictitious imagined figures, or again, I was looking a lot to film, so I would kind of base my characters or my subject loosely on people from that I was drawing, like I was referencing in the photos, but it was never specific. And the figures were also a lot more yeah, they weren't as specific. There was a little bit more of like an archetype that I was using. And I think that was probably largely because the previous work had kind of been so much in the pursuit of knowing the self and in seeking like connectivity between fragments of the self. But with this show, I kind of wanted to expand the universe of my work, and I wanted to invite friends into it, thinking of myself as a spiral, as it were, and merging my spiral with their spirals, thinking of it as like a double spiral. I don't know if anyone has ever read the book The Mystic Spiral, which traces this motif. You know, it's a very timeless motif throughout art history. Really interesting book. But yeah, sort of merging our journeys and timelines together. But yeah, kind of how I arrived at the spiral was through my interest in the ear, you know, thinking of the ear as as a vortex, as an entry point, as a portal. So yeah, to go back to it, the title of Own Vortex comes from Milton's poem, which I won't bother reading out to you here, but I do have it here. And in this poem, I think he's not talking about the vortex or the spiral necessarily as infinity, but as sort of a medium, or thinking about the vortex as a medium for spiritual travel through which we're sort of grasping at infinity and the human experience. This is a picture this is an image of a snake, or I don't some kind of vertebrae at Georgia O'Keeffe's house in New Mexico, and I love that, so I want to start that off with this imagery before I jumped into this show. So yeah, you'll see that with this show, the work is a lot more specific. The images are a lot more specific. The figures are a lot more specific than they have been previously. With this show, I wanted to think about color being used compositionally along with the actual figures being used compositionally, or the way the figures are used compositionally to create a spiral or an arch that's kind of been a loose underlayer of a loose structure of every painting. So with this one, you can see, if we're thinking of this red sun as I don't know if you can see the arrow, my cursor, but the sun as the middle spiral point, and these figures spiraling outward, creating a spiral with their forms. And I've got a little bit of a spider web here tucked into the hair, another one of nature's naturally occurring spirals. And here we've got the figure morphing into the mountain is in the background. I think so. This was the first piece for the show. So this was kind of the piece that I built everything around. And it's hard to see sometimes in photos, so hopefully these detail shots will show you. But again, I don't pre-mix colors. I don't mix and then save color for the next day. I just kind of mix on the go now. Now having worked with color for a while now, I think my kind of decision making with it is a lot more intuitive. Of course, I do, you know, if I see color palettes that I like, you know, I'll save them and try to mimic them. But a lot of it is just sort of I try to let them inform each other. This is another piece from the show, or everything from now is from my current show. This one, again, the disembodied ear keeps showing up in the work. I liked the idea of this portal being held in your hand like a shell. So here I have it in the center of the shell, everything radiating outwards from there, along with that same motif occurring naturally. Color-wise, reds and greens are kind of a big color motif for the show. I couldn't specifically articulate to you how I arrived there, but as I was working that just kind of became what made the most sense to me. But when you zoom in, you can see that everything, it's almost like colored pencil, I guess. Some people wonder if my work is colored pencil, but it's not. And oops, here we have my next piece. I wanted to use the archway here, as you can see on the left, as a narrative tool and kind of a way to extend space and time in the work. And you know, here the braid too, I wanted that to, the way that it grows bigger and shrinks as it goes into the background, I wanted that also as a tool to push time and to push time. So that these two are repeating figures of the same person. This is my friend Hikaru. But here, as you can see under the arch, I'm using sort of brighter colors here. I wanted it to be almost like a deep forest space looking into like the light, and then I wanted the space outside of it to be sort of a dusk time. But I think the challenge for me when first using color was trying not to be so literal, you know, like night didn't have to be blue or black. So that's still something I'm always challenging myself with. But here's some more. This is a Botticelli painting that I was looking, and I got to see this at the Prado actually when I was just there recently, when I was in Spain. So I got to see this painting, or this is actually a part of a triptych. I believe there's 3 paintings, but I love the way the trees were used to create space here. So that's what I was trying to do with my work, with my painting as well, as you can see. And here in the background too, I have a lot of recurring motifs. In the rock wall, you'll see I've got ears tucked into them. I'll try to move a little more quickly. I think I'm running on time. This piece was called Infinity Loop. It's pretty simple. Here I just wanted the body form, the gesture and the braids to form a loop within a loop. You know, is this what a vortex looks like from above? Here we have the red sun from the first painting repeating itself. I'm trying to create threads throughout the work, connecting one piece to another. And this was actually like one that came out of really left field color wise. The color felt really different than what I normally do, with the earth tones and the blue kind of being so maybe jarring with each other. And I was pretty nervous when I made that decision. I didn't know that it was going to go that way. Initially, I had planned for this whole painting to be all blues and greens. And then when I started finishing the painting, here you can see how I layer the colors again. You know, as you can see, I started with the blues and the greens, and I was going to keep building on top of that. And then I just, out of left field, I thought, I think I want to make the hands red. And once I did that, I completely changed what the background was going to be. And just kind of had to work from there. And I was at this point, I was pretty nervous. I thought, oh God, I've made a huge mistake. I wasn't sure how it was going to come out, but I think it came together okay in the long run. I always have blue tape painting the border to create the borders of my work while I'm painting. But I had to take the blue off at this point to finish the painting, because sometimes it can really mess with your perception of color. So to finish it up, I had to take off the tape. And then again, here it is at the end. I thought the green, sometimes I think unexpected color combinations like this, I try to push myself to have unexpected color combinations that feel uncomfortable, because I think that actually functions in a way that's really interesting. So another super large piece. This one, I wanted the figure here to be really disproportionately large, so feel a little tight, almost like you were looking through a keyhole and she's looking back at you. The rock wall around her is made up of ears and rocks. I kind of liked the idea of the ears being this most direct entry point into your head, and then thus being used to create an entryway of sorts into introducing or meeting this person. And that's the same sort of, this is the same reoccurring pattern that I had in this wall here. Again, the rock wall with the ears. And again, like, this is the most fun for me to paint. Always the best place to play out with color combination is something sort of shapeless, like a rock in the ear. I see another question. Oh, thank you. Yes, the ears. I'm obsessed with ears. It's interesting how that kind of became such a focal point in the work for me in the last couple of years. But yeah, very, very helpful. This one is based off one of my best friends, Joseph. I was thinking a lot about, how does one paint breath work or breathing? You know, how do you paint something that's not tangible? Like, how do you show breath? So I was thinking a lot about breathing exercises that are used to regulate and balance the body. And of course, that led me to thinking about music, you know, like music, wind instruments are sort of this non-tangible manifestation of breathing. So I wanted to make a painting of him playing the flute. And then I wanted this dog also to be kind of this apparition, being conjured by the music, something sort of spooky. I was thinking a lot about how sensation and feeling, again, how is the body made of sensation and feeling and experience? Here, you know, the breath, the flute, the apparition, the sort of moon out here in the window, all of that is functioning together as a unit. Nothing is its own element. Everything is functioning together. My favorite part of the painting is actually this wall over here that I did. The brown and the green, again, is a combo that I kept coming back to. This is some reference imagery that I was looking at the time. Again, most of my reference imagery is now compositionally, not so much with color anymore. A huge part of my reference point or an earlier work was really to study color, and now I try not to overstudy it too much, and I try to let my intuition guide me a little more, which doesn't always get it right. Like this wall was actually a completely different color, and I had to paint over it several times.
Excuse me, Lily, we have a question.
Sure. Oh,
What
sure.
was from Joan? What was the reaction or response, both in school and for your shows? Is figurative more acceptable and narrative? Give us your insight on that.
Well, I didn't have any shows when I was in school, so
But you
I
had
don't
reactions from
know.
your professors.
Yes, I did. It's interesting. I mean, figurative work, when I was an undergrad, figurative work was not very popular at the time. These trends go up and down. I mean, figurative representational work. So I finished undergrad in 2011 2011, and I've been making figurative work, as long as I've been making art. There's been like a huge
Shift.
sort of, yeah, there's been a huge shift really from this interest in abstraction back to figuration. So when I was in school, I think that shift was starting to really take hold. I don't know. I had a hard time in grad school. Many of my teachers were abstract painters. I was in mostly painting classes, but again, I was really working more as a drawer and printmaker mindset at the time. So a lot of where my work is now, it wasn't
Then
it wasn't like this. It wasn't like this when I was in school. It was like that first piece I showed you at the beginning of the slideshow. And I think a lot of my teachers maybe had a hard time with it. I don't super know.
That's fine.
I
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah,
also
I mean,
your subject matter, not your autobiographical, but this business of spiritual and holistic and herbal and all this stuff that is very feminine, I think.
I think so too. Yeah, I mean, a lot of, I mean, I think a lot of the canon of work that I was looking at as painting in terms of like paintings that I was looking at, or a lot of male painters, but a lot of my reference points that are outside of historical painting have always been a lot more feminine, and I think the work kind of merges those influences, those impulses together. And of course, then I'm more inclined to seek out other
And your
points of reference.
and your figures are very strong and
Yeah.
independent looking. Yes.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
I mean, no, it's not. The word feminine is or feminist. It's all misinterpreted nowadays, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think I want, I think there was that really great craft show at the I don't know how I've gotten back to this point. There was that great craft show at the Whitney, I want to say maybe a year or two ago, that was all about artists working with mediums. I mean, it was largely female artists working around traditionally mediums that were considered crafty. So, embroidery, fabric, beading,
Biodegradable.
yeah, things like that were considered feminine works. But it was a really cool show to have those works kind of recontextualized as those materials being considered like real materials versus what
Are
the
you
time
coming
they were
from New
made.
York tonight?
What's that?
Are you coming from New York tonight?
I am. Yes, I am. I'm in Brooklyn right now.
Oh, you have the advantage of a very rich environment, a lot of stuff to be influenced by.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely, there is more than enough here to take in every day.
For
So
sure.
yeah, most definitely. I thought I've lost the chat. I saw someone.
Lily, are you there? Did we lose you? If we did, just come in again. Let's see.
What happened?
I don't know. Let me just text her real quick.
It's been going so well. It's a really
I
interesting.
know. Actually, we're
There she is.
lost. Oh, okay. Hey, I thought we lost you there. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. My computer just really randomly shut off and it's not turning back on.
Maybe, but I'm glad you're back. We're rounding
Yes.
off. Actually, we have 10-15 minutes, I think.
Okay, sure.
Notwithstanding questions and all that. Please go ahead, unless you want to entertain more questions now.
There was
Oh,
a
no,
question
please.
about Gauguin. Did you see that?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind telling me what it was, because my computer, I still can't get, I'm on my phone right now. I'm sorry that my computer shut off in the middle.
I just thought that the richness of your work and all those drawings and such reminded me of Paul Gauguin when he was doing his Polynesian drawings and such.
Oh, yes. I definitely was looking a lot.
Love those, yes.
At his works. I do love those paintings a lot. I thought they were really beautiful. I would say that, yeah, there was definitely a time where I was looking to his work a lot for kind of color influences and structurally, not so much anymore these days, but I definitely remain a fan of those paintings and the way he made them. Sorry, I'm trying to plug in my computer so I can get back online to you.
Okay, tell us your plans, Lily, moving forward. Any upcoming projects or coming back to Los Angeles? I know you had your show here last year.
Yes, so far not quite sure what the next year holds. I will probably be doing a art fair in New York with my gallery at Frieze, New York. Hopefully, we are applying for that right now, so I hope we get in. And then the rest of the year, I don't totally have planned out quite yet. My work schedule. Do you mean like on
daily?
Day-to-day life.
Day-to-day life. Well, I mean, I'm lucky that I get to work exclusively in my studio now. That's like been a pretty recent thing for me in the last couple years. So I go to studio probably 6 out of 7 days of the week, if not every day, depending on how much I have to get done. And I'm there usually for, I don't know, at a minimum 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours, maybe 12. I'm not working the whole time. Everyone thinks, oh my gosh, you're there for so long, you're working for so long. I'm not working a lot of that time. I'm sure, as you know, when you're painting, like so much of that time is just thinking too, you know?
Yes.
You're not actively painting a lot of that time. You're just kind of thinking about painting. So that's a huge part of my schedule is that.
Documenting your phase, your layering yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Right,
I mean it, because sometimes you never know. I mean, sometimes I'll go into studio and the entire time I'm just sitting there thinking about what I'm going to do with the rest of my day, or thinking about the color decisions I'm going to make. You know, sometimes I'll paint like one tiny thing and that'll be the whole day. You know, I'm sure everyone's had that process where you're working on something and it's been like 8 hours and you don't have too much to show for it.
Right. You know, you mentioned, especially during your postgrad, when a lot of abstraction and, you know, abstracts and all that seems to be the trend. And nowadays, I do see a lot of that. What do you think about that, considering that yours is figurative drawings and all this? Do you have a tendency to even think about that for a future?
Not really in terms of my own work. I think there's maybe because I've been so kind of
Oh, I think
commit. Oh, am I
we're
still here?
lis-
Okay.
you're clipping a little bit. I think it's the
Oh.
network.
How about here?
Better, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think because I've been working figuratively for so long, even at a time. So you know, right when I got out of undergrad, no one was showing figurative work. I didn't show my work until really, again, the last 3 years. So I had been out of college for a decade before I really was showing my work.
Mm.
So
Now you're everywhere.
now I'm doing okay.
Yes.
But
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
there's
it's
I
beautiful
think
work.
I think the trends in art, you know, the pendulum tends to swing back and forth, and it will never be in the same place for too long. So
But I think it's
I
wonderful
try
that
not to
you're,
be.
yeah, that
Sorry,
you're
go ahead.
just so confident that you've stuck with the figure all these years and not really cared what anybody else was doing. And I
Maybe
applaud.
stubborn.
Yeah, good.
I agree. I mean, your work is beautiful.
Thank you.
Any other questions, everyone?
I just think they're
Nancy?
fascinating, Lily, and so interesting on so many different levels. And
Thank you.
keep using those ears.
Yes, thank you. I will.
I
Nancy
thought it was
Rossi,
really
did you have a
great.
Yes,
question?
I'm not sure how to, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, I just was gonna say, I thought your work was beautiful. I love the way the figures are incorporated with nature around and how
I
you
do too.
tie in
yeah.
the braid in from the figure two into nature. So
Thank
you're kind of
you.
connecting with it. And I have to say your work brought to mind, I don't know if you were influenced by Diego Rivera at all, but your work brought to mind that the strong figure of the female and the nature surrounding sort of brought that his work to my mind a little bit. And I didn't know if you were influenced by him at all, or just it just, impressed me that your figures had that sort of same strength of character.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I like Diego Rivera very much. Not with this current body work, but the kind of some of the earlier work I was showing you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I can send you the link to my slideshow later because I didn't finish it because my computer died. I'm so sorry. But
Yeah, send it to me and we'll blast.
Yeah,
to
you
the
can
members.
see you can see the rest of it online. It was just from my current show, but yeah, Diego Rivera. I also like a lot of the Mexican muralists that he was working alongside.
Just also that connection I felt with the female figure entwined into nature. It just seemed really quite beautiful. And
thank you.
Yeah,
I think that I like to look at his work a lot as well, because again, there's so much storytelling in his work. I think a lot of it, I mean, he also had a lot of, every painter is also has drawings too, but and I always tend to gravitate towards their drawings more than I do their paintings sometimes. Yeah, no, I love Diego, and he's working so large scale too.
He's shown the Sandro Botticelli, and I always like the way his figures were incorporated. Like you showed the trees going back with the distance and how the figures are incorporated into nature.
Right.
It's really quite nice.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great to finally see that painting in person after having looked at it for so long.
Your comfort with nudity makes your viewer at ease, and not prurient.
Yeah.
That your figures are so comfortable that it makes, it's interesting because the history of the nude is
Mhm.
long.
It's
Yes.
very natural. It
Have
just
a
flowed.
nude
You're
of
so
a
right, John.
contemporary feeling of
Yes.
naturalness. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yes, it is. I mean, as long as I've worked figuratively, that's always been something I've considered. Because yes, as you said, the history of the nude is very fraught in many, many ways. I really, this last body of work that I have is pretty much the first full body of work that I have where almost all of my figures are mostly clothed, if not the only ones that aren't, I've based on archetypes of myself. Mostly because when I was asking friends to model for me, I didn't feel super comfortable yet asking them to do it nude. I'm sure some people would have been totally fine with it, but I think just when considering portraying somebody else, that was just like another layer of
Well, they didn't seem
depiction to think about. Sorry?
didn't seem to be a specific person, but more of an idealized person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you don't need to look at anybody, really.
Yeah. That's sort of how I felt when I made sort of this shift with this current show. Yeah. And it's especially because everything, again, I'm thinking a lot about nature, and so much of that is really just, the figure in the most natural form.
Please leave us your website
Yes, I will. Thank you.
or type it in the chat.
I will do that right now.
And your Instagram
Sure.
handle. Because Joan, I know you would want to follow her on Instagram.
Thank you, Nancy.
Sure.
I'm just typing it now.
Oh,
There you go.
Lily at Grilled Cheesy.
Yeah, well, my website is just my name, Wong.com. And if you go onto my gallery's website, which is linked on my online, you should be able to see the rest of the images from my show that I didn't get around to sharing, but I think I covered most of them. I think I
Yes, you
covered
did.
most all of them. So you'll be able to browse in your own time.
That
And you can
sounds
see the
good.
frames.
Are there any other, Lil, do you have any other comments or any other questions
I
from
just want to make sure I got everyone's question.
I think we're good.
Awesome.
So I think we're gonna stop at this.